So I wanted to make a video for the purpose of commenting on. It's an issue that's been something that I've been wanting to say for a while, and something that's kind of been percolating in the back of my thoughts. A while ago, probably a few months ago, I think sometime in December, I had been for a while a member of an Episcopal Facebook forum, and it was a very liberal forum. And what I found was that there were certain views of mine that they were totally fine with. I'm pro-gay marriage; they were totally fine with that. I'm pro-choice; they were totally fine with that. And then, of course, the things where I disagreed with liberal orthodoxy, if you will, of course, revealed me to be this horrible human being. And the two areas where I really clashed with I really clashed with people on that forum were one person raised a thing where they said that one of the priests at their church refers to people as either brother or sister, and that this could risk alienating non-binary people. So what should we do about that? And my response to that was just, well, he could just refer to everybody as my child and be done with it that way. And then, as far as non-binary people specifically, there's no such thing as a non-binary person, so it doesn't matter. And then the other thing where I ran afoul of people was the and don't weigh in, by the way, on trying to explain to me what a non-binary person is. I agree that there is a concept of identity known as non-binary. I just don't think that those people actually exist. I think that in an objective format, I could do a whole other video on that. I don't think non-binary exists in an objective format. I think there is biological male, biological female, trans female, and the rare people who are genetically intersexed, which means that they are physically non-gendered. And then there's a whole lot of people out there who are wanting attention and wanting to feel special and calling themselves non-binary and saying, oh, I don't like football, but I also don't like figure skating, so I'm neither male or female. That nonsense is what I'm referring to. And then the other thing where I ran afoul of the people on that forum was the people who there was a discussion about reparations, and I don't believe paying reparations to blacks for slavery. That is not something I agree with. I believe that reparations should only be paid when it is the government, the exact government that instituted the oppressive policy, paying back the exact same people who were displaced by that oppressive policy. So, for example, the Japanese who were put into concentration camps in the United States during World War II should be compensated for the work loss, the time lost, and the property loss, the property seized when they were put in. That works. That makes sense. There are a number of problems with the idea of reparations. And I understand when I say I don't believe that we should pay reparations, it has nothing to do with some kind of like white people desire to screw black people. That's not my position at all. My position on reparations is that I don't think it will work. I don't think you can pay people to change what's in their heart, or pay another group of people in such a way that it will change another group of people's hearts. I think what will happen is you pump a bunch of money into something with no actual economic infrastructure underneath it, and it's all that's going to happen is that money spins through, and then we're going to need to do, nothing has changed, and then we're going to need to do another round of reparations. I could be wrong about that. I'm not an economist. That's just what seems to make sense to me. That's just my position. Anyway, and so like when I started posting my thoughts on that. People raised the subject of reparations, and again, this was the non-binary discussion at least was tangentially related to Christian practice. This was completely out of left field, completely unrelated, or at least not directly related. And what was funny, I remember one woman, when I posted my views on that, she did the laughing with tears in the eyes emoji a few times, said, LOL, Reagan, trickle down economics. I said, I didn't say anything about Reagan or trickle down economics. Just the fact that we're talking about economics doesn't mean that we're in league with Reagan, or that we're talking about trickle down or anything. And it's this leftist idea that really irks me, that if you have any knowledge of how money works at all, and I'm not claiming any great knowledge in that regard, but if you have any knowledge of economics or how money works at all, you must be Ronald Reagan trickle down economics supporter. And then also using the laughing emoji as a weapon, which I absolutely detest. And I feel like as a Christian, that kind of behavior falls to me into the bearing of false witness. I don't think that as a Christian you should treat people that way, the trying to wither them down that way. Anyway, so those two issues, my stance on those two issues, got me banned from the forum, got me booted out. And one woman who was herself, I believe she said she was a deacon of a church, an Episcopal church, and LGBT and lesbian herself. She got in touch with me and said, I actually agree with you on the non-binary thing, and I appreciate you saying that. She was on the forum, and she was an admin, or at least somebody in some ranking position on the forum. And she said, I agree with you on that. And and a few other people had also chimed in to agree with me. And she said a lot of people on the forum actually do agree with you. They're just afraid of rustling feathers. They're afraid of rocking the boat. And she said, let me see if I can get a dialogue started to try to get you reinstated. And so I said, great. And so she did that. And so she put up, and I have a Ghost account, of course, so I watched the dialogue happen from my Ghost account. And one of the, she posted, and she said, we have to remember, in light of the recent controversy, we have to remember that our first and foremost job is to lead people to Christ and provide a forum for them to interact with the Christian community. I'm paraphrasing here, but interact with the Christian community and come to know Christ. And that's our first and foremost job, and we have to be accepting of people regardless of their political positions, regardless of their views, whether or not we agree with their views, whether we see them as reprehensible. We have to we have to do that because our first and foremost goal is to bring people to Christ. And then, almost laughably, almost like a punchline on South Park, the first commenter on that post said, yes, but surely that's not more important than creating a safe space for non-binary persons and persons of color. Yes, it is, if you're a Christian. And that's what blows my mind. There are so many problems with right-wing Christianity that we have discussed up and down, that it's insanely homophobic, that it's sexually restrictive in the extreme, that it demands that you deny fundamental truths about evolution and biological science, that all of these things that have been rightly and roundly criticized in the public sphere and have been the catalyst for prominent atheists like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens to come to to come to prominence. All of those things are true, all of those things have been roundly criticized, and they should be criticized. But now we get to look at, we really need to look at the absurdities and the problems with leftist Christianity. And that statement right there was exactly the point. Really stop and ask yourself, if you go before judgment, are you going to be able, and when you go to judgment, what are you going to say when when they ask you, why did you throw that person out of the crew because they disagreed with you? You're going to say that. You're going to say, I was trying to create a safe space for non-binary persons and persons of color. And they're going to say, oh, so that justifies you turning a person away from coming to know Christ and trying to interact with the Christian community. I believe that, in my personal opinion, I believe you would have to justify that. You would have to justify that statement. And the simple reality is that yes, I believe if you are a Christian, there should not be one political cause on this earth that is worth turning a person away from fellowship to find and know Jesus Christ. And if you want to create a safe space for non-binary persons, do it. If you want to create a safe space for persons of color, do it. By the way, someone saying that they don't believe in paying reparations is not creating an unsafe environment for blacks. Black people are human beings, and human beings are capable of hearing ideas that they don't agree with, and discussing dissenting opinions and interacting with them. Hearing a dissenting opinion will not throw a black person into a tailspin of hysteria and madness from which they will never return. They are human beings like the rest of us, and we are all capable of having discussions. But when you say that those things are more important than creating an environment where someone can have fellowship and come to know Christ, then what you are saying is that those things are your actual religion. That is what you actually worship. That is what dominates you. That is what is your Godhead. That is what you are bowing down towards. And I want to be a part of a liberal Christian community where gay people are welcome. When I was a kid, we went to a church that had a huge. Well, the T was not really as prominent, but LG and B had a huge community for that. That feels natural to me. That feels understandable, and I want to have that acceptance in any Christian community that I'm a part of. I want to have an atmosphere where people can come in regardless of their demographic, regardless of their sexual preference, regardless of any of those things, can come in and have that worship and not make it feel like a stuck-up country club. So, I want a part of that. I want to be in and being pro-choice. Obviously, that's another factor that is important to me. And it's not important to me that the church environment itself be pro-choice, but it's important to me that it's a place where I feel like I feel like I'm not going to be have somebody up in the pulpit throwing pro-life crap at me every day or every week or that kind of thing. And the official Episcopal stance on abortion is that they are philosophically opposed to the idea of abortion, of terminating pregnancy. However, they are opposed to policies which would restrict a woman's access to an abortion, because essentially it's two different questions. One is a matter of personal values and personal decision making versus where do we want the locus of power in the government to be as far as the decision making in this process. And that balanced, neutral perspective is something that is, I think, acceptable to me. Anyway, that's getting out in the weeds, but the point of it all is, if you are placing anything ahead of allowing people to come and worship and know Christ, then that is what your actual religion is. And for my part in all of that, it's important that I not be It's important that when I encounter people that I disagree with, be it a person who is non-binary or a person who is boldly and and utterly convinced that reparations should be paid, or any other political disagreement that I have, it is important that I be able to check that at the door and and when we are in a Christian environment, make my only and primary goal bringing them into the knowledge and the presence of Christ to whatever moderate ability I have to do that, just for my part in that. That's what I have to do. So I should not be, I should not be forcing the issue. As far as my better action would have been to be diffusing discussion of the matter um, rather than having the argument right then and there. But to liberal Christians, as I've been going on in all of this, to liberal Christians, there is a huge, huge checking of behavior that needs to happen, because um, the Christian church should be a place of compassion. It should be a welcoming place. It should be a place of tolerance and a place of understanding and decency. But uh, within that, there has to be an acknowledgement that not everybody is going to agree on every issue. And I think that I anyway, I keep going on and going around in circles at this point. That's just something that's been on my mind, and I wanted to get it out there. Peace.